What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Mythic Conversations. Wednesday nights, 7:30 Eastern Time, right here on YouTube. This is what we do, the weekly Mythic Legions show, talking about everything with this toy line, customizing, all different aspects. Very excited to have you here. Whether you're someone that tunes in every single week, or if you're checking it out for the first time, thank you so much for joining me. Also, whether you're actually one of the people joining me live, or if you're catching this on the replay, thank you as well. If you don't know who I am, if you are joining for the first time and you're unfamiliar with the format and who I am, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Jeremy Gerard. I'm a Mythic Legions collector and customizer. I also have the distinct privilege of being the digital marketing manager for Four Horsemen Studios. So everything you see at sourcehorseman.com, and if you're into Mythic Legions and you're not at sourcehorseman.com, if you're not checking out that website, really, what's going on? Check it out. Tons of cool information there. I kind of program that site like any fan. I'm a fan of Mythic Legions, so I build that site. I write content for that site from a fan's perspective, what I'd want to see. So check that out, sourcehorseman.com. If you want more information on me and my work, you can check me out on Instagram at Mythic Customs, all one word. You can also check out my website where I post pictures of all my work, including recipes, www.mythiccustoms.com. Hello to everyone. Got a bunch of people jumping in already. This is Mythic Conversations. It is a conversation. There is some back and forth. I will be answering questions. If you do have a question, comment on anything that I'm talking about tonight, feel free to use the chat. I will be happy to answer those questions throughout the evening. Yeah, Patrick saying shirt looks great. I will talk about the shirt in a few minutes. Drew, hello. Anthony, you and Tony checking in. Very cool. Nice to have you both here. What's up, Tony? Steven, did you remember to order a red Kabal shirt? Well, Steven, you ordered a Kabal shirt, so I'm not sure which color it is, but I assume that it was red since you already have a black one, and it's on the way to you right now. Joe, nice to have you here watching live. Thanks for joining. So, like every week, the format of the show, we'll talk a little bit about Mythic Legions, actually quite a bit to cover tonight. And then we'll go into the topic at hand. Tonight's going to be a little different, actually. The last couple weeks have been very kind of tutorial focused, where it's been very hands-on with me, painting something, building something live on the air. Tonight, I wanted to change it up a little bit and actually talk about an aspect of Mythic Legions that's not actually confined just to customizing, just collecting Mythic Legions in general. I mean, collecting really toys in general. I want to talk a bit about displaying Mythic Legions. So I've got some stuff behind me, some stuff I want to show you, some ideas about the way I display things, maybe give you some inspiration to kind of mix up your display a little bit as well. So again, what's been going on in the world of Mythic Legions? Like I said, a lot, actually. It's been a pretty active week since we were here last time. Obviously, there was the in-stock sale. So that's probably the big news. I got to tell you, I mean, leading up to the in-stock sale, there was so much talk about it. I mentioned this previously, that you kind of have all of the old school Mythic Legions fans that talk about, their experiences in stock sales. They tell kind of those war stories of the in-stocks. And then you have a lot of new fans who are coming in, because every sale that happens, there's a larger fan base that are going after it. It's why the in-stock sales have traditionally become so challenging. There were absolutely some challenges at the start of the in-stock sale, but I've heard a lot of people say this, and I will echo those comments. I think that this one actually went pretty well, all things considered. I have nothing to do with the store Horseman, with the e-commerce side yet. We'll talk a little bit about that, because Corn Boy actually dropped a little bit of some information that I hadn't even shared yet. But I figure if he's willing to talk about it, then that means gloves are off. I can talk about it as well, right? But as of right now, I have nothing to do with storehorseman.com. I mentioned this last week that if there are any problems, please don't reach out to me. I cannot help you. But the reality is, they did a really good job, I think, with the in-stock sale, preparing for it. But no matter how much preparation, when you have a website that is going from no traffic traditionally to getting just pummeled all at once. Like, I know that when they were trying to turn the site live, trying to turn the items on for sale, and there's hundreds of fans that are all hitting it at once, hitting refresh, 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 that actually causes problems. That's some of the reasons why things were so slow up front, was because of that, is because of just things trying to respond to all of that traffic happening. But unlike the last in-stock sale, the site literally went down. It was down for like 5 hours. I remember Corn Boy did an interview recently where he was talking about this, where he literally said that when they logged into the back end of the shopping cart, not only could they not get it restarted, it was telling them that it wasn't even there. So, I mean, that was broken in a spectacular fashion. This time it was nothing so dramatic. It looked like after 15, 20 minutes or so, maybe 30 on the high side, things started to kind of free up a little bit. It was still a little slow. It was a little sluggish, but people were able to get in and get their orders in. Torgen Redfin, as expected, he sold out right away. The reality is they had fewer of him produced. He wasn't a wildly popular character from that Wasteland wave. So when the pre-orders happen, obviously there's a window of time where whatever is ordered is going to be produced. You're guaranteed to get it. But how many they decide to order extra for in-stock sales and so forth, that's going to be dictated certainly by how popular a figure is during the sale. Something that's really, really popular, they know that, hey, this seems to really have struck a chord with the fans. We should order extras of those. Things that maybe aren't as popular, they might not want to take as much of a risk and order as large a quantity. So Torgen seemingly wasn't ordered in as big a numbers as some of the other figures. He definitely sold out first. I believe as of today, there's Archimedes, Cassia, and Thump that are left. Still some great figures. I mean, the Archimedes figure is an amazing ogre scale. The Cyclops, incredibly cool figure. If you don't have one, picking that up for $55 is amazing. I also really like Thump. In a little, inside info, if you dig the stuff that Wolf King Customs, my friend Len, has been putting out, there are actually a couple future projects that all work really well on Thump bodies. So picking up a couple extra Thumps would definitely not be a bad idea right now. But all in all, I think the in-stock went really, really well. Got a couple people here saying, yeah, way smoother than the past few. It went great, I think. Yeah, I mean, it seems like people got what they wanted. Obviously, that one per person limit definitely helps people get in and get what they want and not have to worry about getting, completely cart jacked. I know that happened to some people where they had the Torgen in their cart, and by the time they checked out, it got lost. But like I've said many, many times, if you are using the in-stock sale as your primary way of buying these figures, you're doing it wrong. That is not how to buy these figures. Now, if you're coming into the line just very, very recently, and this really was your first chance at it, okay, maybe that's why you wanted like a full wave. But ultimately, everyone has said this. If you're going to be a Mythic Legions collector, you got to get in on the pre-orders. That's the way to do it. Far less stress, guaranteed to get what you want. And, just like the in-stock, the lowest prices you're going to pay. So I thought that was really, really cool. Lots of sales happening, lots of sales actually coming to fruition where things are finally getting shipped, including this thing. So Patrick mentioned earlier that I had this shirt on. If you're not familiar with this shirt, this is the Mythic Legions Kabal. So this show, Mythic Conversations, actually used to be live on the Mythic Legions Kabal. Just a few weeks ago, we moved it over to YouTube just because it's a better broadcast. I was having some issues on the Facebook platform that I don't seem to be having here, thankfully. But I'm still a very active member of the Kabal. That is the official fan community of Mythic Legions. I'm actually one of the moderators there. Great community of Mythic Legions fans. If you're not part of the Kabal, certainly go on Facebook, request to join, answer the questions. There are some questions in there, and they're not used to filter out, like serious collectors from newbies or something like that. There's a line that says, how many Mythic Legions do you have? We let in plenty of people that the answer was 0, that their answer is, hey, I just discovered this line. I want to learn more about it. Those are great new potential fans to have in. But we do want to see people answer those questions, including the last one about, do you agree to the rules? The reason is if someone can't take the 30 seconds to answer those questions, they're probably not going to be a positively contributing member of the community. So we use those questions as a way to filter out bots, to filter out people. Facebook just recommends groups based on other things you may join. So you may be in one toy group and Facebook says, hey, you should join this one as well. You have no idea what it's about. So you just hit, yeah, I want to join. Frankly, those aren't the type of people that the Kabal wants. People that have no idea what it's about, no idea about the line, no interest in learning more about the line. So if you are into Mythic Legions and you're not in the Kabal, definitely suggest you should do that. And this is one of the cool things that we've done, because it really has become a kind of community. So Alex is saying, I joined the Kabal when I had 2 legions. Now I have about 7 times as much. Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, don't feel like if you don't have a collection like this, you're not going to get in the Kabal. That's not the case at all. But I was saying that, we ran these shirts recently. We actually first did this shirt. One of the artists that's a member of the Kabal, Cirillo, I believe his name is, he created this logo, which is clearly kind of a parody of a popular band logo, but it says Kabal. He created this a while back. Everyone really loved the art style. So we ran a series of these shirts, a run of these shirts last November, right around the time that we did Legions Con. So we did a pre-order on the Kabal, shipped them out right before Legions Con, and then we had a handful to sell at Legions Con, and they were black shirts. We had so many new fans coming into the Kabal requesting that we do a new run of the shirts. At first, we kind of were hesitant to do so. We wanted to, do something new. We said, hey, we got these other designs we want to do. But again, so many requests that we said, hey, this is the classic. Let's do it again. But in addition to the traditional black, let's also do another color for some of those fans that maybe ordered a black one previously. Now that we're doing a rerun, they're like, I'm not going to buy a second shirt, but I'd love to get something new. We wanted there to be something new for them. So we did it in the blood red as well. I ran the pre-order, honestly, at this point, a few months ago. The order took a little bit longer to come in because of everything with COVID. The printer that we used down in New Orleans, clearly he was not able to have his full staff on to run these. So he was doing it largely himself. But he did get those out to us a few weeks later than expected. They arrived last week, and actually I just shipped them all out in the mail today. So I posted something on the Kabal about this. If you ordered, whether you ordered one of the blood red shirts or one of the black ones, if you were in on that pre-order, your order is in the mail now. Check out for that. If you didn't get in on the order and you want one, I don't have any extras to sell, but there are some extras. I'm shipping them out to Walter Hagen, who, he's the overlord of the Kabal. He's the Walter the Madman. He's the one that started it all, runs the Kabal. Check it out. Reach out to him. I know he's going to have some. I don't know how many or what sizes, but that's probably your best bet to get this style shirt. Again, we will have other styles coming out soon. So that's what's going on with the Kabal and the Kabal shirts. Yeah, Anthony's saying, got a shirt at Legions Con, was lucky to get one. Wasn't shaking chances this time around and ordered the sweet red. Yes, Yours went out today too, Anthony. I remember I had a box of them that I brought to the post office today. They were thrilled with me, let me tell you. But so that's good. Those are out. Other orders that are on the way. The last few weeks, multiple times on this show, I've talked about the Kitsune Foxheads that were sold by Wolf King Customs. I actually shot a video earlier today that I posted to my channel about the Kitsune heads and specifically the hooded head and how to remove a Mythic Legions head from the Mythic Legions hood, like the Elf Ranger head. I've talked about that on Mythic Conversations before, but knowing that people are starting to get those parts actually in the mail now, I know people are going to be looking for the episode where I covered that. I figured, you know what, let me make it easier. Let me just shoot a video specifically about that topic. A lot easier for them to find it. So that is on my YouTube page as well. But all of those painted parts. So the Legends of the Kitsune heads, those are the fox heads that Wolf King Custom did in the fox tails. They did 2 orders of those. The first one was a painted pre-order, and I agreed to paint that full run for them. Those are the ones that are on the way now. I finished painting them last weekend, got them out to Len, and he just showed me, he posted a picture on the Wolf King Customs Facebook page of all the cool stuff, the pictures of him, all the boxes with the Wolf King logo. So those are all shipping out. So I can't wait to see everyone start to post that they've gotten them in. I've seen a couple people like Anthony and Patrick actually posting the makings of their recipes, the figures that they're preparing in advance of getting those heads and tails in so they can start making those customs. And as someone that's obviously done a number of Kitsune customs, I'm very much looking forward to seeing what everyone else is going to do. The second order they did was for the unpainted parts. I talked about that last week as well. Those are being, printed all right now. So I would assume that within the next few weeks, I think they said that fulfillment on the unpainted was 4 weeks after the end of the sale. So the sale ended on Saturday. So this coming Saturday would be week 1. So they said they got about 4 weeks. My understanding is printing is going pretty well. So I'm sure you'll start seeing shipping notices for those soon. And I'm also excited for that, to see my fellow customizers really get a hand on those and see what they come up with. On the subject of Wolf King Customs, again, if you're not following Wolf King Customs on Facebook, absolutely do so. Len does share stuff in the Kabal, but he doesn't want to overrun the Kabal with Wolf King Customs marketing. So he does tend to post a lot stuff in the Wolf King Customs Facebook page. So check that out. You can also check out the website, but they posted a really cool teaser yesterday, kind of on the banner of the homepage. It said "Something evil this way comes," and it was part of an image of something evil looking. I'm pretending I don't know what it is. I totally know what it is. I can't tell you what it is, but it's really, really cool. All of those who, if you dug the Kitsune parts, you're going to love what's coming next, but it's very, very different. That's one of the cool things I've mentioned, that I love all of the companies doing 3D parts. My Action Figure Customs, Planetary Dog Toys with Saba, now Wolf King Customs, even the people on Shapeways. I just got a piece recently from someone, Vincent Garma, who sent me a piece specifically from Shapeways that's in the back that I have to paint up. Lots of great artists putting out wonderful things. The variety is what gets me so excited. But specifically with Wolf King, if you thought that all he was going to do was furry critters like the Kitsune, I think you're going to be pretty excited when you see what's coming next. And if you look at that teaser, it'll give you just a sense that the next things he's looking at doing are going to be very, very different from the Kitsune. I have nothing to do with the next release he's going to be doing. Unlike the Kitsune, which I was very involved in, I'm not very involved in the next wave, other than having seen them, giving him a little bit of feedback on what I think is cool. But I will tell you, you are going to be super excited. He's got a very cool announcement coming up soon. Very cool stuff. Ryan saying, are the Kitsune parts still available? They aren't right now. The pre-order for that is done, but they're going to be back. They're absolutely going to be back. If you missed out on the Kitsune pieces, do not fret. There will be more. I know for a fact that he has some extras that he's printed that he's putting aside for now. There will be plans. I said that I have nothing to do with the next release that he's going to do. I do have other things that I'm working on, specifically with Walter DeMarco Mass Customs. I was so thrilled with the work he did on the Kitsune pieces that I reached out to him and I said, okay, man, I've got other ideas. I want this. So he's got a number of things he's been working on for me. Some of them are getting closer to being ready. So I will tell you right now that I do have some other really, really cool stuff that will be coming out and offered by Wolf King Customs down the road a little bit. It's not next, but it's soon after, I would suggest. I don't know for a fact if there will be some Kitsune parts offered at the same time, but I think it's a very strong possibility. So to answer your question, Ryan, Kitsune stuff is not available today, but it will be soon. Just wait for it. Someone asking, any figure stands that work well with Mythic Legions? It's interesting you asked that because I'm talking about displaying figures today. That's going to be the topic. But to answer that right now, actually, Four Horsemen Studios, they put out some figure stands that are great. They're really, really heavy duty. They actually released them originally with the Gothotropolis birds. So they work really well if you want to like position them up with the bird in kind of a flight pose. They're a little more expensive. I think they're like $6 per stand. So if I was trying to outfit a collection like this with stands, it would be a small fortune. But if you're only using it for a couple figures, stands work fine. Those stands are great. They won't kill you. They are a little hefty, so they take up a bit of room. And if you're looking for something that kind of fades into the display, the actual Four Horsemen stands are probably not the best ones for that. When I need stands, I tend to just go onto Amazon and look up like 7-inch figure stands. And I can't remember what company makes them, but they're pretty. I'm looking to see if I have one close by that I can grab. They're not super heavy duty. They're usually like a little black metal kind of base with a little wire piece that comes up that you can clip around the character's waist. I don't know the brand, but I find those to be very, very effective. And because they're not super hefty, they tend to kind of blend into the display. The figure kind of blocks a lot of it. Those I find work really, really well. And again, I get those on Amazon, usually like a pack of 12 or something. Might be like $25 for a pack of 12, something around that. Alex saying, can't wait to receive my black Kitsune parts. Thank you very much for ordering. Hopefully they should be on the way to you now, so you should be getting them soon. Can't wait to see what you do with them. What's a good way to find a physical store that sells Legions? I know there's one in Ohio, but other than that, I'm at a loss. So on Four Horsemen Studios website, there is a list of approved like retailers, but it's more online retailers like Big Bad Toy Store and Mallfish and Empire Toys. I don't know a lot of actual physical stores that sell these things. That would probably be their individual decision. I know my good friend and partner in Legions Con, Joe Viteri from ToyCon New Jersey, Viteri Productions. He actually has kind of a little setup in his kind of area in New Jersey. He's got a little mini shop. I know he's been talking about potentially wanting to do other things and expand that maybe. But if you're in the New Jersey area, I mean, right now there's all the social distancing, so it's not really a place you can go, but maybe down the road, that might be a choice. Other than that, I know here in Rhode Island where I am, there's a couple collectible shops and none of them have any idea what Mythic Legions is. Let's see. Yeah, someone's saying best bet is Big Bad Toy, Empire Toy Shops, Big Boys Toys. Those are all online stuff. So again, that's where I would get them. If you physically want to go and see them, your best bet once things reopen and we're back to being able to do shows is maybe to check out some collectible shows. Again, like ToyCon New Jersey, not only are the Four Horsemen there, but there's usually a number of sellers that have stuff there. Awesome. So Ryan's saying the toy department in Fairfield, Ohio. So I guess if you're in Fairfield, Ohio, the toy department is a place that actually has these. So what else is going on? So I was talking about Wolf King Customs, other sales coming up. I know that My Action Figure Customs has a sale coming up, I believe, this coming Saturday. So he's taking a little bit of time off to, I guess, do some new projects, recharge his batteries or whatever. He had been doing some sales of regular figures, as well as some of his, painted custom parts. But it looks like he's going to have some new pieces coming out this week, in addition to some reissues of older pieces. He doesn't do a lot of that. I know a lot of people have asked him to reissue some of the older stuff. So that's going to be on Saturday, apparently, at some point. He tends not to say what time he's going to do a post. It's whatever's convenient for him. But apparently on Saturday, he's going to do that. So you can check that out. He's, I'm sure, going to have some cool stuff that people are going to be super into. Planetary Dog Toys, Sebadam, he's always got his shop going on. I placed an order probably going on about almost a month now, and I'm waiting for it. So I know he's gotten a lot of interest. He's working hard to fill those orders, but he's got some really cool stuff as well. So again, in the 3D printing space, there's so much exciting stuff going on. Oh, and there's actually Sebadam right now. There he is. I was just talking about him, and he jumps in. Yeah, nice to see you here, man. So I think those are the main topics, the newsy type topics that I had going on. Oh, there was one other thing. So I mentioned at the start when I started talking about the in-stock sale and about Store Horseman, how I have nothing to do with it. And I said, well, right now I don't, but Corn Boy released some information recently that I guess I can talk about now. So if you checked out Corn Boy's interview with Pixel Dan that got posted last week, it got posted right in advance of the in-stock sale because they talked at length about the coming in-stock sale. Corn Boy mentioned that they were using the old store, but in that interview, he did actually say, you mentioned Jeremy Gerard, the person that handles all of our digital marketing and our website. He's actually working on a new store for us right now. And that is something I had not told anybody. But yes, now that Corn Boy has let the cat out of the bag, I have been working on a new e-commerce presence for Four Horsemen Studios, something that will hopefully satisfy and fix some of the problems that they've had in the past with the amount of traffic that they get during an in-stock sale. Because let's be honest, the pre-orders are not a problem. The pre-orders, people go on, they order what they want. It's all about these bloodbath type in-stock sales. As I said, any platform is going to buckle at least somewhat under the weight of that many people hitting it all at once. But I think we've got some cool stuff in place that will hopefully minimize the impact of that down the road. So we're still working on that now. He also talked about something really, really cool that I'm super excited about. So he mentioned an idea on there, and I can't get into a lot of detail on it, but I'll just address it a little bit. And he talked about a project that I've been discussing with them about doing a website that would allow customizers to go on and pick different parts to assemble an unpainted figure that they could then use for customizing. Almost like assembling a test shot when you think about it, because the test shot figures that they sell, they're all one color. Those are like a gray. Corn Boy said maybe they'd come in black or white or something. I know a number of people heard that as, oh, maybe they're going to have a part store. That's not what he's talking about. He's not talking, he actually says that it won't be that. It won't be a scenario where you can go on and just buy a head or just buy some pauldrons. What he's talking about is something where you could go on and assemble a figure, choose a head, choose a torso, choose some pauldrons, choose some arms. You have to choose all the individual pieces to create a complete figure. But if you have a recipe in mind for certain parts, the idea would be that you could assemble those parts and then receive them unpainted, unassembled. So there wouldn't be, he specifically says there obviously wouldn't be paint applications at the factory. There wouldn't be assembly at the factory. That would be a very interesting business model, a very interesting product that they could offer that would absolutely feed customizers like myself. That's what he was talking about. It was interesting because I don't think I did see one thread in the Kabal about that, and it took a while for people to latch onto it and start talking about it. And I actually commented in it, and I said, I'm surprised it took people as long to jump onto this, because this is something that I think a lot of fans have asked for. And like I've long said, Four Horsemen Studios listens to the fans. This is something they think would be cool. Will it ever happen? I don't know. It's something we're looking into. It's something we're exploring. I know that from my perspective as a fan, I'm super excited about it. I would love something like that to have access to. So really cool project. There's definitely a lot of cool stuff that I'm working on with the studio that I'm super excited about. And I can actually talk about it a little bit because Corn Boy let the cat out of the bag. Very cool. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the topic at hand tonight, what I really wanted to talk about. Once again, thank you for all the questions. I really do appreciate that. But the topic I wanted to talk about tonight was displaying your legions. Obviously, if you check my show out every single week, my collection, or at least this corner of my collection, is the backdrop of the show. So you see that scene every single week. I did a whole tour video on my YouTube channel a while back where the lighting wasn't great, but I took you through all the different cases. So it made me think tonight when I was trying to come up with a topic. I get a lot of questions about the display, and I said, you know what, that might be kind of a cool, different topic to talk about tonight. Not only how I display it, but I've got some other options here that I think you might be able to use to even increase your display, to add some more variety to it, some thrones and some mounts, and even some dioramas that we're going to talk about. So cool topic. I'm excited to cover it. I mean, obviously, when I talk about displaying Mythic Legions, I'm talking about a loose collection. And I do think that a lot of Mythic Legions collectors are loose collectors. There's probably plenty that keep them packaged as well. They may have two versions of them. But I see a lot of Mythic Legions collectors opening up these toys and enjoying them, which is what it's all about. And it's a great line to do that with. Because of the collector-friendly packages, you can return them back to their packages for the most part. Obviously, accessories come in sealed baggies, and you do have to open those. Even if you're careful and you slice them at the top, they are still open. So you can't return them perfectly back to the packages, but close enough. It's not like the blister packs or like the old Spawn figures that had those clamshells that you had to slice into. Those were brutal. Obviously, once you open those, they were open. So I'm talking about loose collectors. And, early on in my career, I've been collecting for 20-something years. I really started, my first real toy line that I collected was actually Spawn figures from McFarlane Toys, all the way back to Series 1 when they were actually called Todd Toys. Funny fact, back then, they were called Todd Toys, named after Todd McFarlane, obviously, and they actually had to change the name of the company because there was apparently a Barbie character that was called Todd. So not Ken, but there was another male character in the Barbie universe named Todd, and Mattel didn't want there to be confusion between Todd Toys and the Spawn line and their Todd Barbie character. Obviously, anyone that has seen those two lines, I'm sure they wouldn't get him confused. Whatever the case, I'm sure they didn't want to fight that fight with Mattel. So they said, you know what, we'll change the name to McFarlane Toys. And to this day, if you actually look up the old, I know they're definitely on the Series 1 figures. They might also be on some of the Series 2, where they say Todd Toys instead of McFarlane Toys. But certainly, By that point, they were transitioning over to McFarlane. But that was my first toy line I collected. And back then, I used to buy 2 of everything. I used to buy 1 to have loose and 1 to have packaged. And I was one of those crazy collectors that wanted all the different variants. And if you didn't collect the Spawn line back then, it was a brutal line to collect from the variant standpoint. Not only did they actually do variants like different repaints and stuff like that and store exclusives, they also were notorious for running changes, like little changes that people would freak out about and have to find this, one version that has, speckles on the gun versus clean guns. I remember there was a character in series 1 called Overkill, like a big cyborg character that came with a parking meter. And apparently the first ones that went out, the little price area on the parking meter, they just wrote in like marker 5 cents on it. Later ones actually had kind of a tampo effect that had 5 cents and 10 cents, and it looked really good because it was like computer generated. But the first ones that went out literally looked like someone took a Sharpie and wrote 5 cents on it. The 5-cent Overkill was a very desirable figure. And I remember hunting that down and having that in package. But that quickly became unsustainable. As my collection started to grow, I realized that I couldn't have both packaged and loose. So I made the decision to be a loose collector. I sold all of my packaged Spawn stuff. Actually, that 5-cent Overkill and the rarity of that figure, along with some others I had, are the reason I was able to sell it all in one lot, because I found some collector that was apparently as crazy as I was, who wanted it all, and he needed a couple key pieces, so he bought everything from me. But from that point on, I became just a loose collector, and that's obviously what really appeals to me. Back then, I was putting all of my figures on like wooden bookcases. And I say wooden, I use that term very loosely. They were that particle board stuff, cheap bookcases that I would buy at like Walmart or Target or wherever I could find them. I had all of them set up. I would assemble those and I would put all of my figures on them. Great low-cost way to display the figures. And I know there's probably a number of collectors here watching the show that's how you display your figures today, on wooden bookcases. I always felt that display was a little lacking. The reason was, for me, having a bunch of bookcases, they never lined up perfectly. To get real wood bookcases that were quality, that would stand perfectly straight, I would have had to spend a lot of money, and that was against the point. I mean, I was looking for a cheap way to display these things. So these particle board bookcases, I always found that, it would just lean a little bit, and when you put them side by side, even just a slight lean means they don't line up perfectly. It never looked the way I wanted, but it's what I had. Believe it or not, before I moved here, my collection was probably more than twice as big as what I have today. I had a much larger space in my previous house. I had a lot of lines. This was a point where I was buying almost everything that I was interested in. Today, I'm really focused on Mythic Legions, a little bit of Marvel Legends, and a couple other things every once in a while. But 99% is Mythic Legions. Back then, I was buying anything that I was even remotely interested in. Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, Lord of the Rings figures, you name it, I bought it. So when I moved here and I had less space, I actually sold almost 600 and something pieces in just one full swoop. All the stuff that I didn't really love, I culled all of that to break the collection down to a more manageable size that I could display in my new house. And when I did that, one of the things that I wanted to do was upgrade the way that I display them. So I went with these glass cases. Now, these glass cases are super popular. I see a lot of collectors that are using them. And to me, they're kind of the de facto standard for displaying action figures. Yet I still routinely will have people contact me after seeing a photo of the collection saying, where are those glass cases from? So even though I know tons of collectors know these are all from IKEA, apparently not everybody does. So all of these glass cases that you see here, these are from IKEA. The brand name, the product name for this case is called a Detolf. So it's Detolf. Very popular cases. The best part about them is they're not wildly expensive. They're $60, $59.99 for these cases. I know a lot of people actually even put lights in them. My friend Travis from the Legions cast show, he actually wires up, a bunch of lights in his. I really wish I had done that when I put them up, because they do get a little dark at times. But they're a great, sturdy display unit. I like them a lot. The only downside to these cases versus the bookcases, I used to love the bookcases that because they had adjustable shelves, you could kind of vary the display, and you could even I used to buy extra shelves. I used to actually go onto the manufacturer's website and say, hey, I had some damaged shelves. I want to replace them. I want to buy some extras. So I would buy a bunch of extra shelves and attachments, and I would add more shelves than those bookcase units even came with to really maximize the number of figures. Because what I found is if I had a 6-inch figure, I didn't want to display it in this huge space that wasn't using that space as wisely as I could. So I like to move those around. You don't get that ability with the Detolf cases. The Detolf have fixed shelves, fixed spaces for the shelves. So every shelf is going to be the same size. But that's kind of cool too, because there's uniformity. If you look across all of the display, every case is the same size. Every unit, every shelving unit in each case is the same size. I really like that overall look. So if you're looking, we're talking about how to display Legions, how to display your figures. I really love displaying them in these cases. I think it's the best way to do so. I love the fact that they're glass. You can see them on all four sides. I'll be honest with you, they don't prevent dust from getting on the figures, but they help a lot. Okay. I also have another section of my display that's got some freestanding shelves that are attached to the wall. Those are not enclosed in glass. And I can tell you that those figures, as well as the figures on the tops of the Detolfs, get way more dust on them than the figures inside the cases. So dusting toys, dusting action figures is the bane of every collector's existence. That is at least helps that a little bit. Now, when it comes to displaying the figures in the case, I talked about this on my tour, but there's a couple things that I think you can do. So first off, when you display your figures, one of the things I think you need to think about is how do you want them displayed? I tend to be the collector, as you can see, that displays them all just kind of at attention. They're not in an action pose. I know a lot of people find that boring, that it's like everyone is just lining up for a class picture. That's what I happen to like. I know there are other collectors that like to be a little more dynamic in their cases. We're going to talk later about using dioramas in your cases, which actually lend themselves to being a little bit more of a dynamic pose. This great diorama came from my friends JD and Chandra at Shelf Gravy. Chandra, actually, wonderful artist. She did this one. I think she said this was the first dio that she did all on her own. I absolutely love it. If you check out my photography, I'm sure you've seen it many times lately. But it actually was made to fit right in a case, and it works well to create a more dynamic scene. So I'll talk about that shortly. But that's one of the things you have to decide. Do you want the figures to be posed more dynamically or standing more at attention? The reality is, if you pose them more dynamically, they take up more room. When you have them swinging swords and all, in dynamic poses, they physically take up more space. So that's something to consider. If you have a small collection of Legions and you're only displaying maybe one case worth and you've got 15 of them, that might be a really cool option to create a really interesting looking display, a more diorama type of battle scene or something. If you've got a lot of Mythic Legions figures, and let's be honest, most Mythic Legions collectors, they get that bug and they just buy and they cannot get enough of these things. Once you have them, you very quickly need more and more space. So being able to maximize how much goes in each case becomes important. Here's what I do. Not only do I put them at attention, but I start to do levels. I have found that because they are like 7-inch figures, they don't take up the full height of the case. So if I only put a handful of figures on the floor of that shelf, there's a lot of space that I'm not using. I need to maximize that space. So there's a couple things you can do. I've seen some people use like acrylic risers. Okay, acrylic risers are gorgeous. They look great because they're clear. They blend in really, really beautifully with this display. I actually have a few of them, not for my Legions. I have some articulated icons, ninjas and samurai, that I haven't customized into Mythic Legions. I do actually have some in their original form. I use some acrylic risers with those, but it's 2 shelves worth. I have 2 acrylic risers in there. The reality is acrylic risers are expensive. Okay, if I was trying to outfit every shelf in every one of these D12 cases with acrylic risers, it would cost me quite a bit of money. Additionally, I find that a lot of the acrylic risers that fit into these cases, they're not super deep, and some of the Legions barely fit on them, especially when you start talking about some of the larger scale figures like the ogres. They really don't fit well on those acrylic risers. So here's what I use. These are green foam blocks that I get from Michael's, okay? You can get them at any craft store. These are the kinds of foam blocks that people use for like fake floral arrangements where they line, a bed of something like a vase or something, and they put the floral arrangements into these. That's what I use for all of my displays. Because they're super, super cheap. I think I usually buy them. It's a set of like 5 or I think it's a set of 6. I think it's a set of 6 and it might be like $5. Okay, so they're not super, super expensive. Usually a set of 6 goes on one shelf. So what I tend to do is they're a little side by side. They're a little too wide for the D12. So what I do is I have a saw and I just cut a little bit off. And if you get them and you measure it in the D12, you'll see you just need to probably take maybe an inch off one of the sides. And what I tend to do with the 6 is I put 2 of them side by side and back, and then 2 more right on top of them, and then 2 in front. So I end up with 2 tiers. And it's not super deep that it comes to the front of the D12. I still have some space there. So you can see on some of these cases, let me see one over here. You can see I would have figures in front. So I can put figures in front of the foam, set them up there, but then the next level goes on that first layer. And they're going to be raised above the ones that are on the ground. So you can still see them. And then that level even higher, I put a handful up there. So I end up with 3 different tiers in my D12 display for my Mythic Legions just by using these foam blocks. You end up spending about $5 per shelf if you want to use all 6 of them. Sometimes I don't need that many. Sometimes I display them a little bit different, but these do give me a lot of flexibility. You can even put them on the other side if you want and just put 2 and just get 1 level there, a little bit of a raise. These are the best choice, the best solution I have found. Now, there is a downside. They're foam. So when you do cut them, they do start to kind of pill a little bit. There's a lot of residue, like almost like dust that comes off of them. So I do get a little bit of dust that I have to clean up in the cases. If you move them, they're going to get dusty. They are a little messy. Again, this is the best choice that I have found. I like this a lot. So if you're looking for a way to maximize the amount that you can get per shelf, think about tiers, think about levels, whether you use some acrylic levels, some acrylic risers that you get from like Amazon, or whether you use some foam like I'm using. I think that will really help out, build out your display. So Joe is saying that Bed Bath & Beyond has some great tiered display risers. Use a coupon when stuff opens. So I've actually never there is a Bed Bath & Beyond around me, I'm sure. I don't know that I've ever been in one. But that's interesting, Joe. I will look that up as well. Again, acrylic risers, I think visually look really, really nice. These I don't think look as nice, especially the green color. I'm okay with it. They do have white ones as well. The white ones are a little harder foam and they're more expensive. So that's why I specifically have gone with the green ones. Steve says, have you considered painting the foam? I have, and I've never done it. I don't know how well it will take the paint. I considered painting them all black, thinking that that would look really, really cool, and I've just never done it. To be honest with you, painting the foam might actually prevent that dust from coming off as well. So that could be kind of a double whammy where they look better and I get rid of that major downside of it. So it's absolutely something that I should try. Considered it, haven't done it yet. All right, so Joe's saying great to use on the top and they won't shadow everything below. Cool. Ryan again asking, are they paintable? I mean, they're foam. I guess you could paint them. I've certainly seen floral arrangements that have the foam painted. So I have to imagine the foam is paintable. I've just never tried it. Drew saying Mod Podge, not sure what that is. Mod Podge, is that a kind of paint? Other things that you can do. So talked about layering them up, but the other thing that might be kind of cool that I think you can think about is what can you add to the figures in the display cases to add some visual interest to the characters themselves, to the displays. So I display my figures very much based on the race. I know some people are very faction focused, all the Aether figures, all the Etheron figures. I kind of do that because for most cases, the factions, the races are unique to each faction. So for instance, all the orcs that are in the corner, every orc that's been released is from the Legion of Aether. All the goblins, they're all from the Legion of Aether. So yeah, I technically have all of my orcs in a display case. I have one whole detolf of orcs. I have one whole detolf of goblins. I also, they're side by side, and it's actually also all Legion of Aether. So it kind of works both ways there. But then you get to like the dwarves. So the dwarves are an interesting race because they actually are from a number of different factions. There are factions that some of them are actually part of the Legion of Aether. King Bromden Ironjaw is from the Legion of Aether. But then there are other dwarves that are part of House of the Noble Bear, and there are some that are part of Sir Valgard is part of the Order of Etheron. There are Orn Steelhide is the Xylona's flock. So the dwarves are actually from lots of different factions. I personally display them all together. In my version of Mythos, Bromden Ironjaw isn't evil. He isn't aligned with Gorgo Aetherblade and the Legion of Aether. He's the king of my dwarves. So I have him displayed there. So when I display all of my kind of races together, all of my dwarves, all of my goblins, it's interesting to also have some additional pieces, I think, in those cases to add to the figures. And one great thing I think you can add are thrones. So adding thrones to your displays, to have the Dwarven King on a throne or to have the Shadow Elf King on a throne, I think adds a lot of visual variety. It also gives you a center point. If you have a whole case of these characters, it's really easy to say, like, I don't know what to look at first. If you have a character on a throne right in the center, that provides a nice visual starting point for people to, I think, focus on when they look at that display, and they can kind of build it out from there. And as you're creating your display and figuring out where characters want to go, having that center point, I think, is helpful as well. So let's look at a couple thrones. I actually have a number of thrones in my collection, some of them custom, some of them that are from other toy lines. I'm going to show you two right now that are from other toy lines because they're actually fairly attainable. They're things that if you wanted to add, you could totally get. And the first one here is my custom Shadow Elf King. So this character who, funny, you know when you see a character's name and you read it a certain way, right or wrong, that's how the character's name is pronounced in your head. When I first saw this character, for whatever reason, I thought his name was Malachi Cinderhorn. When I was at G-Con last year, I was talking to Israel Ramirez, and he pronounced his name Malachi. No, Malachi, that's what it was. He pronounced his name Malachi. And after he said it, I looked at the spelling and I said, yeah, that's probably right. And Iz would probably know that that is the pronunciation. I'm sure he talked to Eric, and Eric told him the name is Malachi. I kind of bounce between calling him Malachi and calling him Malachi. And it's funny because my friend Zombie13, he was watching, apparently I referred to this character's name recently on a show, and Zombie was watching it, and he heard me say Malachi, and he sent me a video of him looking at the figure, and he said, every time you say that name Malachi, I laugh. So Zombie, for you tonight, I'm going to talk about Malachi Cinderhorn and his throne. This throne is actually it's a NECA piece. It is from the Pan's Labyrinth line. This is the throne that came with the Pale Man character. Okay? It's a super cool piece, really nice details. The best part was the Pale Man figure that came with this. It wasn't a wildly expensive figure. It might have been 30, 40 bucks or something. I honestly bought it. I got rid of the Pale Man. I bought it specifically for this throne because it's a very cool gothic looking throne. It's got some very cool details that look like it's carved in to the wood, and it provides a great, it's also not super, super large. So it provides a great point that I can put that character on. And he just looks so cool. You can drape his cape over it a little bit. I love using pieces like this. I know a lot of people fudge in, especially early on in a Mythic Legions collection, because they're building up their legions. And let's be honest, it's not inexpensive to do that. So they start fudging in other characters from other toy lines. They're a little cheaper, a little more attainable, whether it's Lord of the Rings characters, Marvel Legends characters. There's definitely a lot of other lines that you can fudge in. I tend not to do that as much. I have a handful in my collection that are other toy line bodies or other toy line figures as a whole that I've worked in. You can see one actually back here. This is that's my shelf of Highland Barbarians, and there's a big, what I call Highland Troll in that display case. The figure's actually from a show called Troll Hunters that I've never actually watched, but it was just a cool looking figure that I customized, added some more details to be my Highland Troll. That's one of the non-Mythic Legions figures that's in my Mythic Legions display. But by and large, I don't like to mix and match the figures, but accessories like that I think work wonderful. So if you're looking for a cool central point to have in your collection for a specific grouping of characters, think about adding a throne. So here's another one that I like a lot. So the Malachi Cinderhorn, he's a 2.0 style figure. He's an elf, a little bit thinner frame. I think he works well on that throne. But the 1.0 figures, because they were a little bit bigger, they work better on something maybe is a little bit more sizable. This is a throne from Storm Collectibles that came with the Mortal Kombat Shao Kahn figure. Really, really cool throne. Ironically, I actually found someone a while ago selling just the throne. So they bought the figure and just wanted Shao Kahn. I had no interest in that figure. But instead of having to buy, I think Shao Kahn is like $100 figure with the throne. And instead of having to buy the $100 figure and then sell Shao Kahn, I ended up finding someone selling just the throne for much, much, much less. Really, really cool piece. It does have the Mortal Kombat dragon on it, which I'm not thrilled about, but it's in the back, and the way this is positioned in the case, you never see it anyway. That works really, really well. This is what I did with my Lord Verteris figure, at least one of them. I customized it. That's actually a head from a Master of the Universe Light Hope figure that I customized to go on this. This is my King Solomon. So I have a whole display of like genie type characters, Jinn, and I said before that I draw inspiration from lots of different sources. The whole story about, you know, Lord Solomon being able to having a magic rain that can control all of the jinn. I've integrated that into my version of Mythos. So this is my Lord Solomon, and he sits on this giant throne. And again, it's a great centerpiece for that display. If you're looking for some thrones, there's a couple options right there for you. But honestly, go on eBay, look up, you know, custom action figure thrones. There's a number of them out there that you can find. I have a couple cool ones that are in my skeleton display that someone made to actually put Skeletor on. They're all bones and everything. They weren't inexpensive. I might have paid like $45 per throne, and I have 2 of them. But again, wonderful, wonderful display pieces that I think will really add a lot to how you're laying these figures out in your cases. So earlier, Drew was talking about something that I could use here, hodgepodge, Mod Podge. He says it's a white glue that you can add paint to make foam stronger and to seal it. Oh, Mod Podge. I'll have to look that up. Great Scott Amy Scott was saying the Container Store has acrylic risers for days, all different sizes and heights. That's a great, I never thought of that, the Container Store. That's a good tip as well. So thank you so much. Look at the audience tonight, bringing tons of great information. Hopefully you're enjoying this topic. Again, it's not tutorial based. We're not customizing something. But if we're collecting these, we're all displaying them. So hopefully this is giving you some ideas of some things that you can do. On the same note as thrones, another thing that you can add is mounts, horses or whatever. Now, obviously, we're going to be getting some very, very cool horses in the forthcoming Mythic Legions Aether wave. So the fiery horse of Aether, Atheon, that's going to be available, as well as the brown horse, Balius. Very cool generic horses. There are more coming, okay? There are going to be subsequent waves that are going to have more horses. It is no secret that the 4 major leaders of the evil factions, Aether being one of them, those 4 leaders represent the traditional 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Aether is the personification of war, okay? And the others, if you look at all of those factions, Alithia, which is the vampire faction, she's going to represent famine, okay? Poxus, which is from the circle of Poxus, that's where the demons, Azar and Zazar, are from. That's pestilence. And that just leaves Necronomicus, who leads all the skeletons, and clearly Necronomicus represents death. So you have the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. It's not much of a stretch to say you're probably going to have horses for each of them. They're literally called the 4 horsemen. So my point is there are a lot of other horses that are going to be coming. The studios also mentioned in the past, they want to do other mounts. Atlas rides a bear. They have said that on numerous occasions that Atlas actually has a bear that he rides, and they would love one day to do his bear mount. So we will see if we ever, when they get to do those things. There's a lot coming. In the meantime, there actually are some cool horses that you can use right now and some cool other mounts you can use right now for your displays. So when it comes to horses, I have a few that I'm going to look at. Really, the horses that people have used in Mythic Legions so far have come from one of 2 places, either the Toy Biz Lord of the Rings line or the McFarlane Toys Spawn line. Now, the McFarlane Toys Spawn line, there's 2 horses that you would want to look at in that line. There's actually one called the Medieval Spawn horse that's from early on in the series. You want to avoid that. That is not going to work well with your Legions. The quality of the figure, it was very early in the McFarlane Toys day. The quality of that sculpt is not going to hold up to your Mythic Legions. The 2 that you want to look for, one of them comes from a box set called, I think it was called Spawn with Thunderhoof, and that's this one here. So Thunderhoof, these are bigger horses. They are good size. I think actually the horses that are coming out in Mythic Legions are going to be a little bit bigger than these, but not a ton. The horses for Mythic Legions are gorgeous, gorgeous pieces. I've been fortunate to see them a handful of times and hold them. They're absolutely wonderful. They are similar in size to the Spawn horses. This is one, and this is actually my kind of, a lot of people have done this. They've created their kind of Dungeons and Dragons War Duke homage using a Rhaegor figure. I've got some other parts on this as well, but this is how I use it. In that old LJN Dungeons and Dragons line, not only did you have War Duke, you also had a horse that he rode called the Nightmare. This isn't exactly like that Nightmare horse. That Nightmare horse had like skeletal wings, but it's close enough. That's how I display it. Gorgeous, gorgeous piece. I really, really do like this horse. And being able to put a character on a mount like this. Now, it does take up a lot of room. I like to use the upper parts of my cases for bigger stuff like this. But if you want, again, a focal point inside of the case, putting them on a horse is definitely one way that you can do that. I said there are two Spawn horses that you could look for. Besides Thunderhoof here, there's another one from the classic, I think it's called the Classic Comics series, but it's more of a black and white horse. That second Spawn horse I've used a bunch of times as well. I actually have him with my Death Dealer. That's the horse that I put with my Death Dealer figure, my Death Dealer custom that I did. Either of those horses are a little bit bigger. They're going to look really, really well with the 1.0 figures. Now, the other horses that I mentioned a lot of people use are from Lord of the Rings, the old Toy Biz Lord of the Rings line. Those horses are a little bit smaller. I don't think people really realized, I know I didn't realize how small they were until I actually saw the Mythic Legions horses. And a lot of people have said, oh, the Mythic Legions horses are oversized. They're fantasy horses. They're meant to be big, brutish, war horse type characters. Trust me, when you see them and you put those figures on them, you are going to appreciate how hefty they are. But while the Lord of the Rings horses certainly pale in size comparison, I actually think these horses work really, really well with the 2.0 figures. So here I have, this is my favorite of all of the different horses in the Lord of the Rings line, and there's quite a few. You've got, I mean, a couple different white horses, Shadowfax. One of them doesn't come with a saddle at all. That one I don't like as much because it doesn't have all the saddle and the tack and everything. But there's a couple versions of Brigo, the brown horse. I said there's two white horses. There's Shadowfax that came with Gandalf. There's also a white horse that came with a Legolas that does have some tack and a harness and a saddle on it. Again, there's the couple versions of Brigo. There's the Ringwraith, the black Ringwraith horse. And then this particular horse came with a character called the Mouth of Sauron. It's a black horse, but it's got some armor on the head. I love the look of this, like, you know, it's supposed to be cloth, but this tunic piece that's kind of coming down. It's just a great looking overall steed. Really, really like this figure. It was part of a box set, I believe, called At the Gates of Mordor. That, I think, was the only way this horse was available. But you can see that I have a shadow elf on it, and I think it fits really, really well. The smaller framed female or elf figures, I actually think are going to look a little too small on some of the bigger Mythic Legions horses. So if you're looking for some horses to display with your figures and you're afraid that the Lord of the Rings line is going to be too small, especially when compared to the upcoming Arethyr horses and beyond, think about putting 2.0 figures on them. I think that you can get a lot of mileage out of that. And frankly, you can find some really, really good prices for these figures. You can find some crazy prices too for both the Spawn horses and for the Lord of the Rings. But if you're patient and you do your due diligence, you look around, you can definitely find some quality prices for these mounts. And again, I think they'll add a lot. Okay. The last thing that I want to talk about when it comes to displays is actually using dioramas in your display cases. So this is actually something I don't do. Because dioramas take up a lot of room, that's going to minimize the amount of space that I can display my characters in. So I tend to not use dioramas. I have dioramas for my photography. So if you follow my Instagram page, if you see the stuff I post in the Kabal, you'll see that I often have backdrops like this. That is what I'm using dios for. That being said, they do look wonderful in cases. Again, my friend Travis Bowles, I've seen a number of his cases where he uses dios and he mixes and matches. He has same detolf cases like I use. He has some that he doesn't put the dios in, that they're just displayed there. He has others he uses the dios, and that kind of mixing and matching actually is very, very effective in his collection. But it is something you can do. So I mentioned that this dio came from the good folks at Shelf Gravy. So JD and Chandra, they're the ones that put this together. They exhibited last year at Legions Con. If you weren't there, there's a video, there's an interview with them on the Four Horsemen's website. Go find it. It shows some pictures of this crazy castle diorama they've been working on. They actually had it on display at Legions Con. It was unbelievable. But they do absolutely incredible work. And they're just one of the dio people out there doing amazing work. I just got some pieces recently from Crashbox Customs that are beautiful as well. What I really love about them is they are actually made to go in a detolf. They're the exact size of a detolf shelf. So you can open that up, pop this in, and you can have a display. This particular one, I said that you lose some display space when you use dios. This particular one is actually made to maximize display space. It's got multiple steps here that would actually work really, really well to allow you to stack some characters up. Gorgeous, gorgeous piece. It's actually interesting. It's all just like foam that you buy at like a hardware store. It's painted, and it all comes apart with magnets. This back piece is just magneted on, and then these steps, all just magnets that you don't even see the magnets when it's all together, but it makes it easier to store it, if you have to move it around or whatever, it makes it a lot easier. Again, I use these specifically for my photography, but if you're looking for some dios, these are definitely a great way that I think you can display your Mythic Legions in a really cool dynamic fashion. Whether you get something like this that lends itself to just putting them on display, standing at attention in front of these doors, or whether you get a display that's going to be more conducive to that action scene that I talked about earlier. Either one of those are really, really cool. There's a number of dio creators out there that are selling these. Prices are going to vary, but you're probably looking in the neighborhood, based on what I've seen, based on the pieces I've bought, you're probably looking in the neighborhood of $125 to $200 for a nice diorama piece. So obviously at that price point, you're not going to put a diorama on every one of your shelves. But if you've got a display and you end up picking up 2 or 3 dios over time, maybe some different artists who you really like, some different looks, that is a way that I definitely think you can also add some very, very cool display quality to what you have. And for my fellow Mythic Legions customizers who are photographing their figures and putting them online, these things are wonderful for doing that. There's nothing kills me more than when I see a customizer have this beautiful, beautiful piece and they're taking a photo of it like on their kitchen table, or, I can tell that I can see the house in the background. That kills the scene for me. I really want to be able to focus on that character. Even just having, a black sheet behind it, using like a cheap light box from Amazon would be better. But these, so much, once I started getting dios, and the first one, the first one I really started using a lot for photography. Dennis Derby had Shelf Gravy. He sent it to me as a thank you gift after Legions Con last year. And once I had that piece, I was hooked. And I ended up going out and buying another one from Shelf Gravy. And I mentioned Crashbox Customs, and someone that posts as the Dio Fiend. I got a big piece from him. You've probably seen these pieces too. If you do follow sourcehorseman.com, a lot of the photography that I've had to do for that website, I use these dios as well. So, for instance, I posted an article a few weeks ago about the orcs. So there was the races of Mythos, and it was all the orcs. And I used this to kind of set them up on, so you could see all of those different characters, but have a cool dynamic background. Works great for photos, works wonderfully in the cases as well. So I'm going to look a few questions here. Eduardo saying, I prefer outdoor nature for photography. Yeah, I do outdoor stuff as well. I do a lot of that, but for me, it really depends on the character. If I'm shooting an elf character, a ranger or something, yeah, a woodland setting is going to work really, really well for that. But I've found that there are certain characters that I don't care for outside as much. So I mentioned a few times now that I bought a piece from Crashbox Customs recently. Actually, Crashbox sold a whole bunch of these. You're seeing a lot of Mythic Legions fans taking pictures against these castle-like settings. Really cool, kind of, almost like castle church-like windows that are in those. I bought that because I found that when I want to take pictures of heroic knight-type characters, I really wanted there to be kind of like a castle. Not a rundown looking castle, but like a nice castle looking background behind them. If I take one of those knight characters out and shoot it in the woods, yeah, knights can be in the woods and stuff like that as well. But I want different settings as well. So I agree with you. And by the way, thank you, Eduardo, for the comment on my collection. Thank you for saying you love it. But I do really like outdoor shots as well. I take outdoor shots too because of natural lighting. I'm horrible when it comes to lighting photography, so I find it easier to be outside. Even when I do take shots with the dios, I actually do them outside as well. We need more mythical creatures and dragons. Yeah, I mean, I think that would be cool as well. They've long said they want to do like a big 3-foot dragon. I'm worried about how I would display something like that, but the possibility of it coming is very, very exciting. Brian saying, I'm working on my first Legions dio right now. Awesome. Can't wait to see that. Steve saying, I need a dio. Yeah, man, they're very, very cool. Especially Steve, you take a lot of photos as well, and you do really, really cool with the backgrounds that you're able to create there. I don't know if you're using a screen, like a computer screen, like Trevor does or whatever. Trevor, 1/6 shooter. I know he does that a lot. Yours are looking great, but I think a dio would also give you something else, like another option to take photos of. I got to the point, like I said, where I ended up having, I think I've got like 5 or 6 right now that I use just to vary it up. I have some that, are going to be more for heroic characters, some that are more for evil characters. It helps me. Someone's saying I sometimes use scenic printouts as backdrops. Diego, I used to do that. That's what I was doing for a while. A lot of my older photography, I would actually buy like stock photos and print them up and tape them to pieces of wood and use that as a backdrop. So I did that for quite some time. I like the dios better. I find it just easier to work with. I find it to look more realistic because it's not a printed photo. Some of the photos I use and some of the shots I think look really, really good. Others you can very much tell it's just a piece of paper back there. These, I think, I'm enjoying using these and shooting these more. Yeah, Steven saying I just took my first outdoor photos. Eduardo saying the 4 horsemen should come with dioramas. Yeah, it's interesting. I know a lot of people, actually, it's interesting because I know a lot of people have asked or suggested they'd love to see the horsemen actually put out like a play set. I'm ironically not in the playset camp. I've never been a big playset guy. Even when I was a kid, I wasn't huge into play sets. It takes up a lot of room. I know that I'm personally not one that if they started doing things like catapults and war weapons and more scenic type stuff, even though I've shown thrones and stuff like that here, I probably would be very selective if it came to stuff like that. But again, that's the great thing about this line. There are other people that I know would love them to do stuff like that, and it's all things they've talked about. Awesome. Yeah, Mickey's saying I just became your 1,000 follower to Steven. So congratulations, Steven, 1,000 followers, awesome milestone. So actually, speaking of milestones, I actually have an anniversary coming up this Saturday. So this coming Saturday marks 2 years since I've been on Instagram. It's funny because I've mentioned this before, but I was doing customs and posting customs prior to going to Instagram, but after I went to the intern for a day event at Four Horsemen Studios 2 Memorial Days ago, someone there really said, look, you got to get on Instagram. That platform is very much conducive to what you do, the kind of stuff you share. So I started doing that. And since that day that I started 2 years ago, I've never missed a post. Every single day I've posted, which is pretty amazing. In that time, I've done well over 400 Mythic Legions customs. So, while there are definitely a lot of days that I post new pictures of customs I've shared previously. I may post like my 360 shots of them. Sometimes I post tutorials on my Instagram page. The reality is across the last 2 years, the bulk of the photos I've shared have been of brand new customs I've never shown before. Incredible. I'm actually, after this Saturday, I'm going to allow myself to not post every single day anymore. I think after 2 years, I've earned that right to kind of take a little bit of a break and post not as frequently. Curious how that's going to go. Curious if I can actually stay away because I do love sharing that stuff. But that's my milestone. Pretty excited about that. I definitely have a lot of stuff in the works that I will be sharing. So I'm trying right now. I work on so many projects at once that I find that I have lots of half completed customs in back. So I very much, lately I've been trying a couple things. I have been selling a number of pieces. There actually are a number of pieces. If you go to my website, if you go to mythiccustoms.com, you will see that right on that page, there's a little blurb and it talks right in there. There's a link where you can go and you can see the items I currently have available. I have been selling some pieces just to make room. I have a lot on display and I can only display so much. And I have a lot of other ideas, a lot of new pieces I want to add. So I'm always moving pieces out, selling pieces to make room in the cases and to also, make some income to help fuel what I do. So I've been doing that, but I've also, with the customs I'm working on, I've been trying to actually complete some projects, kind of say, okay, this one has been on my workbench forever. I've got to get it done. I actually just completed one today and took photos of. My good friend, Anthony Houseal, sent me some really, really cool weapons that he printed. He goes by the Toy Forge online, and he printed some really cool weapons that he sent me as a gift so I could use in my customs. And I feel horrible that I haven't used them yet, but I finally got around to using them. I finished the custom today, took some photos of it. I'll likely share that tomorrow. But that's what I'm trying to do more personally. I'm trying to, instead of getting excited and working on lots of pieces, actually complete a project. Complete them, start it, finish it before I move on to something else. So let's see. Anthony, can't wait to see it. Yeah, finally got the photos done today. Got it finished. Steven said, I think it will be good for your mental health to pace yourself. Yeah, I mean, my mental health is good, but it's definitely, it's a challenge making sure you have something to post every day. And I've mentioned before that I don't know if it's good or bad. I know that a lot of people comment that they're impressed by the amount of customs that I do. But I also think that there's a benefit in when you're posting something every single day, it kind of loses its luster. It becomes almost something you expect. So I do think that there might actually be an advantage to posting a little less frequently. So when people do see that I post something new, there's that kind of maybe more of a sense of excitement because you haven't seen anything new from me in a week. Who knows? We'll see. I know for right now, part of me scaling back a little bit is just to give me a little flexibility. Um, there have honestly been times where I've been on vacation where I've struggled to find a Wi-Fi signal so I can post that day's post. But it'll give me a little freedom, a little flexibility. And as I mentioned a little while ago, I've got a lot of projects I'm working on right now between managing the website, between working on some of these new e-commerce things, and also planning Legions Con. Joe and I were on the phone today talking once again about Legions Con and what that looks like. Again, we don't know. That's in November. We don't know if we're going to be able to do it live, but we definitely know that we're doing something. So we're talking about a virtual version. The reality is, even if we are able to do the show live in November, we're still going to want to do a virtual aspect to it because we know there are lots of people worldwide that cannot actually get to Parsippany, New Jersey to join us for Legions Con. So we want to be able to share the experience with them. There's going to be panel discussions. There's going to be reveals. We want them to be a part of that as well. So that's another thing that I'm working on all the tech for that, working on the logistics with Joe. So bottom line, I'm busy. So this will give me a little bit of flexibility to kind of ease up, and that's going to be good. Ed Water saying, do you have any clue what wave is next after Aerithir? Yes, I do. I do know what the answer to that. I cannot tell you, but I do know the answer. You will be excited. That's all I can say. Any other questions that I can answer tonight before we call it an evening? Episode 3 of Mythic Conversations, the new Mythic Conversations. Very excited. Hopefully you enjoyed tonight's conversation. Like I said, a little bit different topic than usual. Not talking about customizing tonight, just kind of talking about enjoying the collections, but hopefully you got some tips that you can use. I heard a couple people suggest that the idea of using risers or using foam is actually pretty cool, that they might use that. Maybe a couple of the thrones or horses that I showed, maybe opened your eyes and you're on there on eBay right now looking to hunt some of those down. Very cool. Hopefully you get that. Mickey saying, how long do I think before the new website will be ready? You're talking specifically about the e-commerce website. Not really sure. Don't really have a timeline that it has to be ready for. Again, they just did the in-stock sale and the website supported that. Upcoming pre-orders that they have planned, whether they use the existing website for that or the new one. Either one will, I think, work okay. It's really improving for the experience for future in-stocks. That's most important there. But it's something we're working on. I want to make sure that we do it right. If you're talking about the parts selecting website, I have no idea. That's right now, that is very much kind of an idea in very preliminary research in what it would take to actually do it. So that is much further away, if that even happens. Ryan saying, do you recall where the thrones from your vampires came from? Yeah, I do recall that. So those are from a line called, and I'm going to probably pronounce this wrong, Saint Seiya. I assume it's an anime. It's Saint Seiya. I got them on eBay. They're actually very super cheap. I bought just the thrones. They weren't expensive at the time that I bought them. But they look really, really great. You're talking about specifically there are these like red thrones that I display them on. The Saint Seiya line has a number of different thrones. Some of them that actually are quite expensive. The ones I bought didn't come with figures; they were just the thrones themselves. But if you look up Saint Seiya, again Seiya throne on eBay, I'm sure you can hunt some of those down. Eduardo, do you know when the pre-order for the next wave will be? I do not. I know it's coming, but I don't know the exact date. They will be dropping lots of news soon. I obviously some of that stuff that I know. If they haven't revealed it yet, I certainly cannot reveal it. What I will say is check out sourcehorseman.com. As soon as there is something to announce, that's where it will be. So with that, I think I am going to call it an evening. Thank you all very much. So Joe saying elves versus vampires is my guess. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely, they've mentioned before that they want to do the versus style waves. So Arethyr versus Army of Laodiceus, that was the wave that they did for G-Con last year, the Arethyr wave. One thing they've actually said that I can mention here is originally when they were talking about doing the horses, they were talking about doing that as a Kickstarter. So we had the first Kickstarter wave, then we had the second one for Advent of Decay that they did because Advent of Decay introduced a ton of new body styles. The females, the thinner elves, the goblins. So to do all of that new tooling, they went the Kickstarter route. The line is thankfully at a point that they don't need to resort to Kickstarter anymore. So subsequent waves, when they introduced Arethyr, that came with a bunch of new parts on the 1.0 figures, as well as the tooling for the horses, they didn't have to go to Kickstarter. The reality is originally what they were potentially planning out as a very large Kickstarter-fueled wave with lots of different horses and lots of new parts, that kind of has been split up into different waves, the first of which you saw with Arethyr. So what you saw with Arethyr, where you had a number of characters, very faction focused, wasn't all over the place. Like Advent of Decay 1.0 had characters from every faction, okay? I think what you're seeing going forward is the waves are going to be more heavily themed and they're going to be more faction focused. Joe's saying, yeah, vampires and elves, that's certainly the Xylona's Flock and the Ilithia's Brood. Those are the two that are aligned against each other. So I would suggest that, yeah, we will see that at some point. Ryan said, I think CB mentioned that vampires were coming soon on the Pixel Dan interview. I think he mentioned that as well. Thank you for making Wednesday nights mythic. Thank you for joining me, Anthony and Tony and family. Werewolves would be nice with vampires. Yeah, Cornboy has already said that they don't have any plans for werewolves right now. I mean, who knows? Maybe a third party, out there doing products will put out some wolves. We'll see. I mean, there is one called Wolf King Productions or Wolf King Customs. So I wouldn't be surprised if you saw some wolves from them down the road. Dang, too soon. Yeah, if you haven't watched the Cornboy interview with Pixel Dan, great interview. Once again, if you go to sourcehorseman.com, I've actually added a new section for videos. That video is right on the homepage. I'm going to be going back and adding a bunch of older videos, older interviews they've done, even old videos of G-Con. I'm going to add all of those to that video section. So once again, all things Mythic Legions, check out sourcehorseman.com. Lots of great content there for you to enjoy. And every Wednesday night, be back here for Mythic Conversations. With that, I am done for this evening. As my good friend Drew likes to say, hope to see you next week. Same Mythic time, same Mythic channel. We'll be back here for another episode of Mythic Conversations. Until then, have a good night, everyone. Thank you.